Well, welcome to our first conversation for Echale Gas this year. And today the topic is going to be how to purchase commercial real estate. Some of you guys are business owners, and there's absolutely things that you need to know about. Purchasing commercial real estate is a lot different than buying residential real estate, as we will find out. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and introduce you to our panelists. And our first one, Rosantina, Aranda. She has over 32 years of banking experience servicing the financial needs of business owners. She's a graduate of UTSA with a BBA in accounting and is a certified project management professional. Rosantina's banking experience has given her real-world insight into both lenders' decision-making processes and business owners' credit needs. She's a huge advocate for education, providing businesses with resources, and bridging the gap between the bank and the business owner. Ms. Aranda is a graduate of the North Chamber of Commerce Leadership Lab, the City South Leadership Academy, which is our founding organization, the South San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. That's their leadership institute, and has served on the boards of Boy with a Ball, United Way Stewardship Review Committee, and is a founding member and chair of the Northwest Vista College Business Council. Next, in the middle, is Cyra Trevino. She's a commercial real estate agent and senior partner for Verde Commercial Real Estate Group. She's been a business owner for over 20 years. She has made it her passion to help other businesses and entrepreneurs succeed in their real estate investments. She hails from UTSA, where she obtained her BA in politics and law, and further obtained her master's in human resource development from Abington University in Garland, Texas. She was a sitting member of the San Antonio Board of Adjustments from 2018 to 2021, and it was her passion to contribute to the development of San Antonio and help improve the lives of local residents and business owners. She now serves on the SABRE Commercial Committee from 2021 to 2022 and serves as their vice chair for 2022 and has been nominated for 40 Under 40 with San Antonio's Business Journal. She's a proud mother of 2 sons in grade school and is married to her best friend for the past 10 years. Now, next on his end is my buddy Marcello Martinez. He's a registered architect and is an award-winning architectural designer and the principal of 1718 Architects. And it's really neat that you named the company after the founding of San Antonio, which tells you we have buildings in this city that are older than the United States, which is really kind of cool when you think about it. He's also a graduate of Central Catholic High School and the University of Texas at Austin. He has worked on hundreds of projects over the course of his career, most notably Mission Concepcion Riverwalk Portal, the revitalization of downtown Houston Street, and the adaptive reuse of the Knicks building. Marcello served as a member and chair of the San Antonio Planning Commission for 8 years. He's a graduate of Leadership Class San Antonio, Class 35, and has served as board member for several nonprofit organizations, including the YMCA, San Antonio Children's Museum, San Antonio Youth Soccer, the Playhouse San Antonio, SAWS Rate Advisory Committee, and the Alamo Plaza Citizens Advisory Committee. Mr. Martinez is the father of 2 children, is a proud Southside resident, and a recent newlywed, as I understand, so that's a good thing. Okay, so conversations on real estate, finding and buying your first commercial property. That's what you need to know. Our first question, what must a business owner contemplating a purchase of a building in their space absolutely get right? What is the one thing they have to get right from your perspective and what you do?
One of the things I saw, and that's why I became a consultant, is that a lot of business owners did not prepare before they walked into the bank. And so the absolute things that you should do is, number one, pull your credit, see what it is, understand what it is, and be able to, go in there confidently with what's there. And if it's bad credit, the bank knows that life happens, right? And a lot of times they're really forgiving on some of the collections that if you have any for like medical reasons. You just have to share that story with them, like what are the issues and why, and they're really there to support you and help you fund your business. But you have to be able to be upfront with them right from the beginning. So without a doubt, check your credit, pull it, see what's there. Everything's good there. The number 2 thing would be get your books in order. Make sure that you have a bookkeeper or a CPA to really prepare your financials. There's nothing I can do I was able to do for a business owner without that information. Because really, that's how the bank determines if you can afford the loan. It's based on those financials. And when I say financials, what I'm referring to, it's tax returns, really, like 2 years of your tax returns, not only for you, but for your business. And if you've been in business for more than 2 years, they want to see that historical information, because they're going to look at you based on what you've done in the past, okay? If for some reason, you know, there's not enough income, but you got this amazing future happening, then you would want to put projections together. And so that's number 2. And then I think that the number 3 thing is just to be able to present yourself and your business. Tell them the story about how you got started. What are you doing? What do you sell? You know, give them that confidence about you that they would be willing to lend to you. So just prepare yourself in those 3 ways, and do it in writing, because, you know, a lot of people relied on me to remember all this information, and it's a lot. And so I would, to better set yourself up for success, is have all that information in writing and be able to present that to the bank when you walk in.
Okay, so in my experience working with a lot of business owners, one thing that I think that is overlooked the most is zoning. Zoning is so important to what you're doing. Whether it's purchasing a building, building something on land, you need to make sure that what the designated zoning for that property meets the requirements for your company. For example, if you are primarily an office-based or an industrial-based company that does heavy or light industrial, and you see a building, you get really excited about it, you're like, I want to buy this building because it's right where I want it to be, it's close to where all my customers are, but you don't look at the zoning, and you don't realize that, well, now that I bought this building, I can't do industrial here, this is zoned for office. I can't tell you how many people I've run into, not only on the purchase, but also when they're even leasing property. They get to go to lease a property, and now they can't get a C of O because of the requirements for the space and what their use is. So I think that above all, what I've seen is something that really you need to research. You need to find out, what is my business requirement? What does the city require for my business? And a lot of times you can call the developmental services department. They have an excellent staff there that you just go to them and say, hey, I'm not sure, I'm looking to purchase this building, or I'm looking to develop this land. Can you help me figure out what it is that I need in order to accomplish this goal? And they're very helpful. Another resource is people like myself and Rob. We are in the commercial industry. We do all the legwork. You know, we go and we find out what is it that you need, what kind of zoning do you need for your business, because it's so important that your foundation that you lay before you even go and after you deal with bankers and you get your approval, you need to make sure that what you're buying is pertinent to what your use is. So I think that would be the most important thing.
Great. So zoning, that's a big difference between commercial real estate and residential. Most of the time, houses are ready to go and they're zoned correctly for use, but commercial property is a lot different. Great. Well, Marcello, what does some of the applicants are looking at?
Great, thank you, Rob. So from my point of view, I would say, you may have heard this cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. Location, location, location. So think of your customer. Who's coming to my business? Who's going to use it? Because they're the one bringing the dollars to keep you profitable, keep you in business. So for example, I had a restaurateur who found this great building, great price, all these things. At the bottom of a small hill, it was right in, right out. That you couldn't turn left to get into the space. I said, hey, look, by the time I see your building, I'm past it. If I turn around to come back in, I can't turn left. I'm not going to eat here. He didn't agree with me. We did the project, and the food was great, the design was great, the restaurant failed. So you can't get to it. So who's your customer? Are they coming to where I'm buying this? So you're purchasing a building. You're making a large investment. You're doing all this work. Make sure your customers come. So what I do with a lot of my clients is I ask them, who's your typical customer? Tell me their behavior, tell me their habits. So if you're a customer, if you're doing a coffee shop and they want to get coffee on the way to work, well, are you at a major thoroughfare where there's traffic? Can I go through your drive-through, get back on the road, get to work on time? If I can't, don't buy that building. Whoever your customer is, define them, define their habits, and let that guide you in the purchase of the land or the building you're looking at.
What's the number one mistake business owners make in purchasing a property or constructing?
I think the biggest mistake I saw perhaps is that they're not ready to move into a building, because I think a lot of business owners feel, and in some situations I did see when they're ready, it's a beautiful thing, right? Because now they're saving money and they're building equity for their business. But when they're not ready, and what I mean by that is, one, do they have enough cash flow to not only support the loan payment, but you have to think about insurance for the building, the utilities, if it breaks down, all of these other things that are part of owning a building. Is not any different than owning a residential home where you have to keep up with it. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes is when they're going to go into a building that they're not quite ready. I find them that they start really, it just becomes a nightmare in a sense, because now they're just very trying to make it. And in reality though, a bank, when they're going to give you the loan, that's what they're looking for. They're checking to see if you're really ready for that loan. And so they're including all those things. They're looking at that. When I have a client that comes to me, I'm already looking for those things. But only you know as the business owner if you're ready and if you can really support the debt and all the different things that go with your building. Just being prepared, because like I said, it can save you a lot of money in the long run. I see it all the time where you can save money on the debt service versus paying lease payments every month. But just doing your homework.
The number one thing I see from business owners, and I'm guilty of this myself, starting a company over 22 years ago, thinking you can do it on your own. A lot of the pitfalls business owners fall into when they're dealing with purchasing a commercial property is they think, well, I don't really need help. I understand. I've bought a house. I know how to buy things. But not understanding all the avenues and the different meanings that exist within the commercial real estate world. Not to mention you're engaging with, for example, if you have a commercial building and that commercial building has an owner that's represented by an agent, well, that agent represents the seller. They do not have your best interest in mind. So I can speak from experience when we started our company, and this is just going back to even signing a lease. We didn't even purchase anything. When we signed the lease, we didn't understand what we were signing. I mean, you look at things and if you're not privy to commercial language, you can look at a lease and see it's a modified gross lease, or it's a full service lease, or it's a triple net lease. Well, what do those things mean, and what does that mean to my business in the long run? Each one of those aspects has a very different implication for your company in the long run. It's gonna implicate your bottom line. It's gonna implicate your future capability. All these things that I think are really important. So the most important thing I can't stress enough is whether you're purchasing, whether you're doing land development, is making sure you have a team of people that are versed in that industry, that are experienced in that industry, that are on your team to help you achieve your goals.
So basically, making sure you get the right butts in the seats, right? Not only the correct architects or the engineers on the team, people that can help you through the permitting process. You mentioned C of O earlier. What does that mean?
So C of O stands for Certificate of Occupancy. Now this is what the city is going to do once you are going to lease or move into a building. They're going to come and do their inspections, and they're going to make sure that the space is built out to support the use, the zoning, and then they will award you your certificate of occupancy, which is basically like the city kissing your property saying, okay, you can do business here.
But I would say there's all kinds of hidden costs. And so if you're purchasing a building, you often have the right to purchase a feasibility period. For let's say 30 days, a couple $1,000s, no one else can buy it from under you, and you explore. So zoning was mentioned earlier. Am I zoned correctly? You can maybe do a traffic count. Are the cars coming by that I expect? Do I have, and zoning means this is what the city says you're allowed to do here, essentially. You can't do a business where you can only do a house. Is the plumbing line in place? Is the transformer big enough for my needs? A lot of questions to ask, and then check the building out. Does the roof leak? Is the foundation in good shape? And so during the feasibility, it is incumbent upon you to do your due diligence that you're purchasing a building that either you understand the costs or there are no hidden costs. Having said that, there are always hidden costs, so try to identify those as best as you can. Falling in love with the building too soon, and then stretching yourself to make it work, because man, that detail over that door really is pretty and I just love it so much. It doesn't have a sewer, that's all right. So that's maybe not all right. And so that would be the advice I would offer.
Talk about the differences of maybe building something in what we call the ETJ or the XEJ or the XTJ, or building something inside San Antonio. How's the planning, how's the permitting process?
The ETJ is sort of like halfway San Antonio, halfway not San Antonio. And essentially, you still need drawings, you still need to meet fire code. Instead of submitting it downtown to the city of San Antonio, where they check a million things, you submit to the county marshal and they check fire and life safety and a couple of things, except for tree. So landscape issues are controlled by the city of San Antonio, even in the ETJ. The services are often less, oftentimes. So you may need to put in a septic system if you don't have a water line. Maybe your power is undersized. So part of the problem with the ETJ is the services are not as robust. Something else to keep in mind, potentially, depending on where you are. It is sometimes an easier process. It depends upon your business.
I'm a business consultant, and my company name is Business Lending Advocate, which really explains what I do. I'm an advocate for small businesses so that they can get the lending they need from the bank. I saw all the time where, as I mentioned, clients would come to me and they weren't prepared, and it would break my heart because I know they could qualify, but they just didn't have all the information and they would just give up. And I'm like, no, don't give up. You can do this. It's just going to take a little work on your end to get prepared for that loan. So that's essentially what I do. I have a website. The first step, another step you can do is just determine, right? Are you ready for a bank loan or not? And that's kind of what I do, is help coach you through that process to get you ready.
I feel a lot of camaraderie to business owners, having come from that, having built a business. I understand the blood, sweat, and tears that it goes into, and it's something you put your heart into. People who don't own a business don't understand all the nights that you spend thinking about the next day, your employees, how are we going to make it there tomorrow? What are we going to do? How are we going to hit our goals? So I absolutely believe that, businesses need a recipe to succeed, and that's kind of why I got into real estate. And I got into it because I saw a need for people in small to mid-sized business sectors that just didn't understand the commercial real estate world, and they fall down a lot because of it, or they give up. And I hate seeing that, because I see the dream and I see what they're doing and I see how successful it can be. So that's kind of what I do. I help negotiate. I help you navigate all the purchasing, leasing, land development. I connect you with the right people. I make sure that we have enough time for you to do your inspections. I make sure that those inspections are done correctly, and we're making sure that your interests are protected throughout the entire transaction so that you can have that foundation to be successful. Because the last thing you want to do is you get the place, you start your business, and then you start seeing all the things that you should have done and all the things that are now starting to negatively impact your company, because you've got enough things to worry about as a business owner. That's what I do. I do commercial real estate. I'll have my cards on the table. Our website is www.verdecommercial.com. We have a lot of agents that you can connect with, or if you want to just come and talk to me and say, hey, I'd like to connect with you, or I'd like to see who I can connect with. We have a lot of people we can get you in touch with.
I'm a registered architect. I'm also a small business owner, so I know what you guys are all going through. And I get involved in different phases. For a lot of clients, I will walk the building with them. They haven't bought it yet, and they want to know, what do you see? What am I missing? So we offer feasibility services where we will check the building out, check out your zoning, check out your sewer line, check out the foundation, all of those things I mentioned. And then if they're deficient in some area, we'll then say this is what it would take to bring them to code. And then I'll also look at it from the point of view, and I'll ask you questions like, who's your customer? Because they often forget. And then of course during design, I say we're like the movie director. So all the engineers, I kind of marshal them for you, and I make sure everyone's on the same page. I know budgets are often tight, schedules are often tight. So what do we have to do to meet that? And then many times also an owner will say, I want X, Y, and Z. And I'll say, okay, your budget needs to be A, B, and C. Well, I only have A and B. Okay, then we can't do Z. Whatever that is, if you follow my letters. So that's a big part of what we do. And the advantage one thing that we are able to do is I've done all kinds of projects. So I've seen hundreds and hundreds of projects in the city and have a good feel for why they're not working or what they're working. Our website is 1718architecture.com. I'll put the cards out. But I would say also, the right tool for the right job. So make sure you get the right architect for the right project that you're going to do. So if you're going to do a hospital, don't do don't hire architects under the hospital. If you're going to do a small coffee shop, don't get a hospital architect. So it's also something to keep in mind.
Great.
There's something called SAWS maps. So if your area is served by the San Antonio water system, they have in the internet maps of their lines, so we can find out. There's water here, or there's sewer here, or there'll be sewer here in 10 years, not now. So that information can be obtained online. Oftentimes, I'll walk around the site with the owner looking for a map. As simple as that sometimes. As far as power goes, again, it's just at a gross level, you can just kind of look up and see how big the transformer is. And again, if it's not there, then you contact CPS Energy. Hey, what do we have here? What's coming? And so it's a combination of just a little bit of field work and also doing some research with the public utilities to see what's there.
What is the process of applying for a commercial real estate loan with a bank?
When you come into the bank, there's a big difference from when you're looking to purchase real estate, like a building that's already in existence, versus you have raw land and you want to do construction. It's huge difference there. So I'm going to just talk really briefly on for both projects. It involves there's like a 3-step process, but for the construction process, it's going to be a lot longer and more information that the bank's going to require from you. But I'm going to try to, just kind of give you the highlights of what it is, something that you start thinking about. And I'd be happy to give you more information afterwards. But so for commercial real estate, there was a question that was asked, and the feasibility of looking at a property, seeing if it matches, is a 30 to 60 day process. A lot of times the first step in the lending process is your credit approval, which is the banks. So that's where all your financial information, your credit, and all of that happens first. The bank's going to first see if you can afford the loan. Then after that, there's going to be a process. They'll say, okay, you've been approved subject to, and that's going to be subject to the appraisal and the environmentals. And I don't know if you have a question for that, but the environmental assessments, those are all going to be based on the dollar amount that you're going to borrow from the bank. Each bank has different thresholds. But typically, if it's over $1 million, it's going to take longer. There's going to be a lot more due diligence, right? Because the dollar is higher and there's more risk. Versus if it's under $1 million, then there might not be, there's still going to be some due diligence, but there's going to be different levels of appraisals or environmental assessments that might take less time. So the first step is credit approval. The second step is running the due diligence on the real estate, whether that's an appraisal, an environmental. And then the final step will be running the deal at the end and running it with the title company that, where they're going to check for all the liens and making sure that everything's cleared on that property. You'll be required to buy what they call title insurance. And really this is just insurance that the bank asks of you to buy, that there's no liens against the property. And just a quick tip on that, when you go to your title company and apply for title insurance, tell them that you want to also borrow for the insurance for the borrower, not just for the bank, and you maybe pay like $200 more to get that added insurance for you. Because the thing is, when you buy title insurance for the bank, it's only good until the loan is there. But then, if you pay it off early, you want to keep that insurance for yourself, so nobody comes back and tries to put claims on your property. And that's what that insurance does. It helps protect from anybody coming back and saying that it's your property, then the insurance will cover any expense to cover that. So those are the 3 steps, essentially, that you're going to have to go through. And for the different type of companies, I really strongly encourage to get that team together to really, when you get out and start looking at properties and wanting to buy one, and once you're really serious and you have like a purchase contract agreement that you want to move forward with this, please, I can't encourage you enough to reach out to the partners to help you make sure, because the bank's also going to require you to have a budget. If you're going to do a construction loan, you need to provide the bank with a high level budget of what it's going to cost and what you're going to spend the money for. So an architect is always someone that I always recommend to talk to. While you're going through that feasibility process, that's when you start bringing in your team members. Actually, you come in first before you even come to me, right? Because you first go looking for the property, and then after that, you come to me to say, okay, now I want to check to see if I can get, it's almost like a pre-approval, and just do that first step of the credit. And so then once you get past with that, then you're like, green light, let's move forward, bring the team members on board, and let's do all the due diligence to make it happen for you.
So here at SouthsideFirst, we do a lot of collaborative things with the SBA, the Small Business Administration. Talk about the different loan products that they back, what those mean in terms of occupancy. I mean, can somebody be a landlord and get an SBA loan? What percentage of the building needs to be leased out? Those kind of things, and how is that different than a conventional?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's different, but not really, I guess. My short answer to that is that it's different because whenever there's a misconception that says that SBA loans, that the government gives us these loans, and that's not true. When you have an SBA loan, it's an SBA guaranteed loan, the money comes from the bank. And the bank has to still do that first step, those 3 steps that I talked about, they're still going to go through those 3 steps. The only thing is, when you get an SBA guarantee, the bank will say, okay, well, I'm going to give you I'm going to give you the loan, but I want you to get an SBA guarantee on it. And that's just because you've been identified as higher risk than normal, or you might, there's really 2 reasons why I saw people, going out and getting an SBA guarantee, or why the bank requires it. The first reason is that the customer is a startup company, or they haven't been in business very long, maybe 2 to 3 years. Because there's not a lot of history, they're going to require it. And then the second thing is, the business owner doesn't have the 20% injection to put into the whole project, and they could only put in a 10% injection towards the property. So in that situation, that's where an SBA comes in handy, right? Because you only have to put 10% versus 20. Although there is a fee that the government charges for that. So, you really want to look to see, is it really beneficial? A lot of times it is, because we don't always have all the cash in hand to do the deal. And that's why the government came in play and say, okay, most small businesses don't have all this cash, so we want to help them. But the thing is that all the fees and everything can be rolled up into the note when you're doing an SBA loan. Now the SBA, let me see, there's a 10%. Now there's 2 different types of SBA. There's a 7A and there's 504. Great products. I really love the 504 because with the 504 you can buy all the equipment, everything that it's going to take to get that business up and running. All the finish out, everything that you need. Whereas a conventional loan, we're not going to, that's going to be a separate loan, for different terms. If you're going to buy equipment for your business and you're starting it, or you want to grow it, that equipment will be on a separate loan for a shorter amortization, versus when you do a 504, they'll roll it into that real estate deal, and now you can amortize it for a longer time period, like 25 years. Does that help answer the question?
Sure, you used the term injection. Can you kind of explain what that means?
It's the money or the down payment that you have to give towards the loan. That's the 10% versus 20%.
So if I'm buying $1 million building, if it's an SBA loan, I need $100,000 I need to show the bank.
Yes, sir. And you have to show proof that you have that money in the bank.
For a certain amount of period, right?
You gotta provide tax checking accounts to show that you have that. That's one of the SBA requirements.
Okay. How long money has to be in place in your account so that you can count it as assets?
At least 3 months. They're gonna ask for 3 months of bank statements to show that the money was there. Unless it's being gifted, then, you could get a letter from whoever's gifting you the money and they have to say, I'm gifting this money, I don't expect it to be paid back. And I had some situations like that.
How would you describe the current state of the commercial real estate market? Is it hot, warm, or cooling? And then the question is, when do I jump in? Do I jump in now, or do I wait things for crash, or what do I do?
The market has been just all over the place ever since. Everybody, we know how it's been with COVID. It's kind of affected market trends all over the place. But that being said, I think that most people in our sectors are positive towards 2022. If you're going to look at the nation as a whole, we're anticipating moderate growth as opposed to what we saw in 2020 and 2021. Now, if you break it down by sector, now you have to consider San Antonio. So San Antonio, we've kind of flown under the radar a little bit of what's happening with the rest of the country. Not to say we weren't completely impacted by it, but because we have such robust healthcare, government, and finance industry sectors here in San Antonio, it's kind of stamped that hit that a lot of the country felt. Now, if you go into different sectors within San Antonio, like office, for example, office, we saw in 2019 close to $1 billion in sales. In 2020, that kind of just dipped. Office, I think, out of all sectors took the biggest hit. And we all know why. Everybody was staying home. Business owners, companies were realizing, well, we don't need all this space, and they started to downsize. So it really took a hit on the landlords. But when we look now that we're in 2022, and we're looking back at 2021, now 2021 is hitting the same marks as 2019 sales revenue. So the anticipation for 2022 is that office is going to continue to have a steady climb. Multifamily industrial, they really never saw a dip. We saw steady climbing on the pricing. I don't know if any of y'all are in that sector, but prices just climbed still, even in the midst of COVID. And that's because there was a lot of demand and very little supply. What I anticipate for 2022 is the supply is going to start slowly meeting the demand. And so we're going to kind of see those prices adjusting and kind of evening out. Retail, they're still climbing. They still have kind of an upward battle in a lot of ways. I anticipate, more of the neighborhood market centers are going to be the ones that everybody's going to gravitate towards in 2022. But overall, I think that we're headed for a positive year.
Okay, so talk a little bit about the Californians. All the companies that are moving to Texas in general, some of that is coming down to San Antonio. How is that fluctuating the real estate market? Is it making things harder to find? How does that pressure on small business people? We had some guys drive in for Verde, and they could just see all the growth of office buildings and all new companies. How is that permeating in this market?
These companies are coming in and they're seeing the tax advantages here. They're seeing the prices here that are a lot lower than what you're going to get in California. So they're selling off their stuff over there and they're coming here. And so what you're encountering, and the reason why a lot of the trends have climbed up, not just in commercial, but in residential too, is you have somebody like you and me who are here, born and raised, we're working hard, we work in the system. And we go to buy a building, and here comes somebody from California says, oh, well, you have 3 other people interested in this property. Well, here, I'll give you $100,000 more than what they're asking. And so what that sets is, it sets the bar higher. Now, granted, we are a non-disclosure state, so a lot of these prices don't get disclosed. But the ones that do get disclosed and the loans that we can see on the back end, it sets another bar, so it sets another median, and that's what drives the market prices up because of all these investments coming in, that they have that purchasing power to offer way above what the normal market rate is, and that has been contributing, and I know it's very frustrating, and I was frustrated me. I wanted to sell my house and go buy one, but now I don't want to do that anymore because it's just a wash right now, but definitely it has affected. But 2022, I still think that we are headed for a positive year. I think that everybody's starting to come back into the market. People are starting to go out more. They're starting to go into businesses more. You know, we have a lot of headway with the medical industry and what they have been doing to help all of us. So I think that I still think that we have a good year coming up.
As a potential building owner, when do I need to hire an architect? That's always a question a lot of people have because they just look at the price of an architect and their eyes get really big because it's not a substantial cost of building, but I think the planning and all that stuff is an absolute necessity. So when should I hire an architect in that process? And then what kind of inspectors do I need? We talked a little bit about environmental, but certainly more than just guys checking for fire sprinklers. There's a whole list of professionals. But I know as the architect on a lot of teams, you function pretty much like the conductor. You make sure everybody gets in there and does what they need to do.
You should get an architect as soon as you can, quite honestly. I often go, even before, like I said, I have clients, repeat clients, where I'll go just look at 3 or 4 properties, and if they get the 5th one, because I say, don't get this one for these reasons, or here's what I see in this one. So I bring a lot of expertise in looking at the building. Anytime, especially ground up, but if you're doing any major renovation, plumbing's moving around, you need an architect to guide that. And there's a lot of hidden ways of using the building that an architect will bring to the table to help you occupy the building the best way possible. So yes, we're experts in navigating the city and talking to contractors and all of that, and also in your business flow and making sure the building is optimized for you. You're spending the dollars you should spend and not spending dollars you shouldn't spend. A good architect will advise you and say, you can save that money. You don't need to do that over there, but you should spend it over here. So when looking at the building, again, the kinds of inspections, I mean, it's outside in or it's ground up. So outside in, I mean, your traffic flow, your traffic patterns, your zoning, your land use. So that's kind of outside in things to look for. And then ground up, how's my foundation? How's my sewer? How's my power? How's my water? How's my structure? How's my roof? 85% of the building problems in Texas have to do with the roof. So that's a pretty major problem. HVAC systems. If you're, it feels cool in here, yeah, but it's cool outside, and you're going to bring in a hood and a stove. If your AC is suddenly undersized, that may be the expense you hadn't budgeted for. So there's a lot of things that we can look for and bring to the table. Number 2, there's multiple teams you're going to need. So we talk about the teams they bring, but then there's also the design team, and then there's the construction team. Again, more teams that you're going to need. And during design, you're going to want engineers that know what they're doing. During construction, you're going to want contractors that you can trust. If you don't know a contractor, oftentimes as an architect, I have relationships with many contractors, and they treat my clients well because they know I'm going to give them more work if they treat my clients well. So it's good. Many times an owner will find a contractor off the street I've never heard of at a really low price, and I'm kind of scared of that. I don't think you should hire them because that price is too low, and they're charming and they can sell, and then they get the job, and then the owner pays twice as much, it takes twice as long. It's unfortunate, but it happens. So again, the right team is critical every step of the way, and if something's too good to be true, it often is.
On the banking side, if you're going to do a construction loan, just know that the bank is also going to do due diligence on your contractors. And so when you're working, you're getting ready to hire someone, you want to, get all their information and then run it through with your bank to see if they, if they can do, they'll do some background checks on them too, because they want to make sure that whoever's going to build the building has good credentials. So definitely partner with your bank and share with them who you're thinking about using as a contractor. And also another thing about the appraisal costs or the architect expense that you're gonna have to make in the beginning if you're building a building is that's what the banks consider soft costs, and that cost could be applied towards that 10 or 20% down payment that you're required to do because it's part of the overall project. And so just know that that's going to be counted towards, that expense. And sometimes what I've seen in my experience is that the owner will pay the architect like a down payment or make some payments towards the overall project. And then at closing, we'll, include some of the remaining balance of what you owe the architect to get, the part of the loan to pay that off. So just something to keep in mind.
So what else falls into that arena of soft costs?
Appraisals, environmentals, all these costs that are, what's considered the difference between soft and hard is that the hard cost is going to be what the contractor gives us with the brick and mortar of actually building the building, and then you've got everything else that's included as part of that project.